Hello and welcome to Edupedia World. In this lesson we'll be taking a look at how you can add effects to a layer in After Effects. For this example we'll be color grading some video. So now I'm back in our flowers and horses composition and I want to try and color grade this image. As you can see right now it's pretty flat, and that's just because of the camera that this video has been shot with. As you can see, there aren't many flowers. It's pretty there's not much contrast and the colors are not in any way saturated. This video is shot on a camera called the A7S, and for those of you who don't know, then that's this camera. The A7S is made by Sony, as you can see, and this camera shoots in a very flat it shoots a very flat image, and that can be seen right here. But what that allows you to do is really grade the image. You can get into all the shadows, and there's just a lot of what is it called, a lot of possibilities. So if we want to grade this image, we have two options for applying the effect. So the effect we want to apply can be found in the Effects and Presets panel. Let's just try and type in curves, and this will give you a some small handles that you can use to change the colors. So if we go into take this curves, and then we can drag it onto this layer right here, because that's the one we want to add the effect to. So we take our curves effect and then just click and drag onto our wide shot, and there we go. As we can see, our effect has now shown up in the effects controls. So beside the project panel we have effect controls, and if I were to select maybe the close-up layer, then you'll see the effect up here disappears. If we go back to wide shot, it appears. That means this curves effect has now only been added to close-up, the wide shot layer. What this effect does is that I can drag this. As you can see, now we are affecting the red, green and blue channel. I can also select them individually, but if I drag this, then you'll see I'm now changing the colors. So this represents the lighter colors up here, and then the darker colors up here. So now I've lightened the highlights, and now I will darken the shadows, and this will just give us some nice contrast. As you can see, the image now really starts to pop. If I click on this FX icon, or these two letters, I can turn the effect on and off. And as you can see, this has actually already made the image look much nicer. I will maybe tweak it a bit more. And now you can see I've changed it quite a bit. It's maybe a bit too much. This looks like a HDR image or something. It looks pretty cool, but not quite realistic. So now I've only changed all the channels together. If I were to change the red channel, then you'll see the color starts to change. So I will add a bit of red in the highlights and pull it up here in the midtones, and then I will just lower it a bit here in the shadows, and I'll just fine tune this. And then in the blue channel I like to raise the blue in the shadows and then pull some blue out of the highlights. And then if I can get this just right, I don't have to change the green channel, and I think it looks right, very nice right here. So if we look at the color wheel, then we will see that red and blue are complementary colors. I think that's what it calls. That's what it's called. And here I've added some blue in the shadows and some red or a bit of orange because of the green here in the highlights, and that looks very nice together. So if I turn the effect off, you'll see this is what we have done, and I think it looks very nice. But the problem is that this effect has now only been added to the first part of the video here. So if I drag along, you can see this next shot has not been graded. What I can do is take this curves effect and then copy it. So I'll do Control C and then go on to this layer and Control V to paste. And now the effect is the same for both images. And if I go to the third shot, I can do the same. So select the layer and paste. But if I were to say, I want to change the look of the whole video. Maybe you are working for a director for a movie, and then he says, oh, you got the color correction all wrong. I want maybe a blue tint or a, I don't know, cyan tint for the whole video. Then you'd have to go in and delete all these curves and then just do it all over again. And of course we don't want to have to do that. So let me just delete the curves from these two layers, and actually also from the third, because as you saw I copied it. I can also do Control X, that will cut, and that will remove and copy at the same time. And then what we want to add is an adjustment layer. So an adjustment layer is invisible. As you can see, it doesn't do anything if I turn it on and off. There's no difference, it's only these small dots. But what it does is that it takes whatever effect that has been added to the adjustment layer and then adds it to the layers beneath. So I will take our adjustment layer and then I'll add our curves adjustment to the adjustment layer. So Control V. And now our color correction has been added to all the layers. And now that I've looked at this grade for some time, I can see that it has got too much contrast. And that's something you'll have to get used to. When you're doing color correction, you'll always want to go back and forth, do a bit of grading, and then go do something else, and then come back, and then you'll sometimes realize that what you've been doing is wrong. So now we can see our grade has been added to all the layers, and if I were to go in and change maybe the red channel, then as you can see it's changed for all the videos, all the video clips, and that's very nice to have. We could also try and add a sharpen effect. So sharpen, that does what the name says, it sharpens up the video. So just type in sharpen, and we can drag this on to our effect layer. And the effects are read from the top to the bottom. That means After Effects will first go in and add the curves adjustment, which did this, and then it will go in and add this sharpen effect. The sharpen is very simple. You just have a control for the sharpen amount. So let's see what happens if I turn this up. You see the lines get very jagged and very pronounced, and this is an effect that you have to be very careful with, because let's just set this to 100, and then when we look at the image we're like, this is actually not too bad. But then when you start previewing it, it starts looking all weird. And what I've found is that for this camera I can't go much higher than just 15. So if I were to zoom in maybe on this flower and then turn it on and off, then you'll see that the effect is actually pretty noticeable. So if we're just a bit out of focus, then this can help a bit, but of course you can't fix focus with Sharpen, but it all helps to maybe make your footage a little bit more sharp. Another effect that's very nice to have is fast blur, and that is probably the opposite of the Sharpen effect, so I'll just turn the Sharpen effect off. The fast blur is just a blur in After Effects, so if I crank this off, if I crank it up, then you'll see the image gets blurry, and this is, yeah, it's very nice to have. You can use it for maybe a title, so I'd say, okay, blur the background, and then Control T, and write our title. That's just, maybe this is cool, I don't know. And here we have our title. So you can do all sorts of stuff. If we just preview this, then you'll see your title in the front and then a nice blurred out background. As you can see, if we look here at the edges, then you may not be able to see it, but there is a slight vignette, and that is because of how the fast blur works. In order to get rid of the edge, we have to say repeat edge pixels. So if we take this and you have to focus on the corners, then you'll see the vignette disappears. That's just nice to know. As you can see here, the adjustment layer will affect what these bounding boxes go around. So as you can see, these go around the whole image. But if we were to just drag these in, then you'll see we can actually just limit the adjustment layer to a little part of the image. And that means that all these effects, the curves adjustment, which did the color correction and also the fast blur, will only be added to this small part. And that's very nice to have. You can, this way you can mask out or just pick whatever region of your image you want your effect to go to or be applied to. So that's very nice. There are also other ways of color grading your footage. If you go over to Effects and Presets and look under Color Correction, then you'll get a large list of different effects. You can use maybe a tint. Let's just throw that onto the adjustment layer, and then we can say the dark areas, we want those to be let's say a blue color, and the light areas, we want those to be a orange color. And then we can change the amount of tint, so that's how much we want the effect to be added. And this does the same as I talked about earlier. I make the highlights yellow, and then the dark or orange for the highlights, and then the shadows I make those blue because they are complementary colors. This is another way that you can grade your footage. Another very useful color grading tool is the contrast and brightness control. So I usually just type in contrast, and then you will find it here under color correction, brightness and contrast. If you throw that onto your footage, you can then just change the brightness very easily, and you can change the contrast. In this case, I would actually want to have the tint beneath, and then so first add the brightness and contrast, and then the tint. So I'll turn off the tint and then dial in my contrast and my brightness like this, and then turn off the tint again. Sorry, turn on. And here is my final grade.
Thank you for watching Edupedia World. Stay tuned for more videos.